Hello, everybody. I'm Deborah Sophia Magdalene, and today, super excited to have Ellen Currie's son Jonathan with us. And rather than me introducing him, I'm going to ask Cindy to do the introduction because Cindy has worked with Jonathan in the past and she knows how awesome he is. So, Cindy, over to you.
All right. Well, I'm Cindy Johnson from the USA, and I am so happy to have Jonathan Dawson on this call today because I met John probably in 2014 or maybe 2013. I'm not sure. I was asked to speak at a conference in Charlotte, North Carolina, and so was Jonathan. And so we sat and had lunch together. He told me about his incredible mother, Ellen, and we ended up becoming friends. And I had him come to our dealership as a trainer, and he came maybe 3 or 4 times. I don't know, but he spent days with my team there. And there was a pivot in their life when he came because he looks at sales so differently than anybody I've ever seen in my life. And not only is he a fantastic trainer, he also has such a heart for people. He blew me away with his generosity and his goodness towards the staff, even in the time of a flood. And I have to say this, Jonathan, because you blew me away. Our whole town flooded and Jonathan was there. He went home with an empty suitcase. He had given all of his clothes away. He ended up going home. I think he emptied his bank account and gave it to somebody who had lost everything. And so this is Jonathan Dawson, entrepreneur, mad and amazing salesperson, leader in the industry, the car industry, and also a very generous giver. We welcome you today, Jonathan. We're so happy to have you.
Well, thank you so much for that beautiful introduction, Cindy. Thank you for reminding me of that moment and sharing it. And I'm honored to be here. Pleasure to be here. Got the invitation from my mother. She said, "Would you be willing to speak to our team, both directly and then indirectly, those that catch the recording, about some psychology of sales, some closing, how to build their business, influence, how to increase their influence, how to increase their ability to persuade without manipulation, how to help them grow their business within their communities and so forth." And I said, yeah, I'd be happy to do that. And so here we are, and it's a joy to be here. So my understanding today is that I'm going to be talking to business builders. And we're talking to some people here who want to build a business, who want to increase their top line revenue to their household, create some financial freedom for their families. And so I'm going to be sharing with you something very near and dear to my heart, which is how to do that through sales. And, I think it's really important that we start the conversation by trying to define sales, because for many of us, and I think this is generally true, most people who get into sales somehow kind of get into it by being thrown into it. Very few people actually, in my experience, come into sales thinking, I've always wanted to do sales. Somehow they get bumped into it. Somebody in their life says you could do it. Somebody in their life says you should do it. They get to a point in their life where they think, I need to do something, and I think I'm going to try it. But they end up in sales. And sales is one of those things that experientially we've all probably had what we'd call a good or bad sales experience. We've all probably bought something and had some sort of salesperson involved, and it elevated the experience. And then we've probably also tried to buy something, had a salesperson involved, and it only complicated the experience. So we have a mixed bag when it comes to sales, but there's no doubt that stereotypically, when you think of sales, most people kind of cringe. And I'm here to try to solve that. So what I want to do is I'd like to explore, what does it mean to be in sales? What does that mean? So if we're taking some notes today, and I hope that you do, I want to start by just saying maybe the idea, when I think of sales, what does sales mean to me personally? What do I think of as the idea of sales? If someone said, you're a salesperson, or are you a salesperson? Like, what connotations come to mind in your own imagination? I would say that the majority of people would have some form of negative connotation. And so what I'd like to do is redefine that, because sales is actually an act of service. When you sell something properly, you're serving someone. Sales is the exchange of value willingly done. So when you sell something, what you've done, if you've done it well, is you've helped someone get something that they really want or value. And they've demonstrated that by exchanging money for that thing, money being something else they extremely value. So if you do sales properly at its highest form, it's an act of service to somebody. Oftentimes I tell my sales teams that, what you're really doing when you help somebody buy something is you're helping them get what they want, that they wouldn't do it by themselves, almost like you're a coach. When you're a salesperson at the highest level, you're like a coach. A great coach will always get you to stretch a little further than you would normally stretch, to run a little faster than you would normally run, try a little harder than you would normally try. A coach will take you to a place that you wouldn't naturally and normally go on your own. And a salesperson can do that too. When done right, a salesperson can lead a person to something they do want by helping them understand the value of it in their life. When you're in a business, as many of you are, you really must master two primary functions, the function of sales and the function of marketing. Otherwise, your business will fail. And this is true of essentially every business. If you have a wonderful product and it's marketed well, and people raise their hand and say, that's interesting, that's an interesting product, but if you do not know how to help them through the sales process of that product, then they don't convert. And if they don't convert, there's no cash, there's no revenue, and your business fails. And so you can have the most compelling product in the world, but if somebody doesn't create a sales process for it, if somebody doesn't create a process by which a person can take action, exchange their money, and in return for the value of that thing, then the business fails. So you are all in the business with two primary responsibilities to develop your skills. Develop the skills of marketing, which is to get your message out there, and then to develop the skill of sales, which is to help people take advantage of the wonderful offer that you've had. So the framing of today will be the psychology of sales, the psychology of helping people say yes, helping people take action. And I would like to start by kind of giving you, if I can, a framework for which I'd like you to think about 2021. And I'm going to give you a kind of a backdrop philosophy, if you will, of 2021 success. What do I need to do if I want to reap a harvest in 2021, right? If I want to reap a harvest, I'm going to teach you how to sow first. And so here's another big note I'd like you to write down. You're going to write down SOW. You're going to stack them on top of each other. SOW, each one representing a new word. We're going to talk about, if you want to reap, you need to sow. And so here's what I want you to write. S is going to stand for systems. O is going to stand for opportunities. And then W is going to stand for the work ethic. To be successful, to be truly successful in a field like sales, or in a field where you're in a business and you're building a business and you need people to do business with you or to grow your business, you're going to need all three of these. You're going to need systems, opportunities, and then the appropriate work ethic. So let's take a look at these individually for just a second. So systems are essentially anything that you do that causes anything you do to become more easy, more efficient, or more effective. So a system is anything that you do that causes anything that you do to become easier, more efficient, or more effective. And so this is the first thing we must start to look at. If our goal is to create systems, if that's one of our goals, we have to create systems in 2021, or we have to utilize systems in 2021. And that makes anything that's more easy, more efficient, or more effective, if that's what a system does, then one of the things that would be a good starting point is to figure out, well, where is it not easy? Where is it inefficient? Where is it ineffective? Where am I right now ineffective? Where am I right now doing it the hard way? Where is what I'm doing taking longer than it should? And so identifying the breakdowns in your process, identifying the breakdowns in your business is one of the first things you must do, because you need to create systems that solve that. And so as you look at your business, as you look at your conversations, as you look at the opportunities that you have, as you look at the way that people respond to what it is you're doing, you need to ask yourself, where in that experience, where in that process is there inefficiencies? Where in that process is it not easy? It should be. And where is it in some way ineffective? And if you began to keep a little journal of that, a little notepad, a little journal, a little diary, if you will, you begin to log these entries and say, I find that when I'm trying to do this, it doesn't work. Or when I find when I'm trying to do this, it takes longer than I think it should. or I find when I'm trying to do this, it's really, really hard. And why is it so hard? And if you journal these things over and over and over again, every time they occur, what'll happen is you'll stop normalizing what other people have accepted. You'll stop normalizing the nonsense of your business. One of the things that companies count on me to do is to bring a new set of eyes to recognize where in their day and where in their processes and where in their people have they just kind of become complacent? Where have they normalized nonsense? Where have they just developed coping mechanisms that are unhealthy? Where have they done this in their business? Because everyone has done this, and no one's exempt. I've never met anyone who's exempt, including myself. And so I think it's important that we recognize that, the human mind is incredibly efficient at developing coping mechanisms. The human mind is very, very good at complacency. It's very, very good at settling. It's very, very good at accepting something it shouldn't accept. It's very good at it. It's a very, very natural tendency to do. And so we see this in people's lives. We see this in relationships where they've developed coping mechanisms for a relationship and they're not changing it. They're not making changes about themselves or about the situation. We see that in jobs where people are in jobs that they don't enjoy, they don't love, they're not impassioned by, they hate it. It's just a job, and they would almost do anything else, but they don't know what else to do, and so they just stay stuck. They stay stuck, and people do this in all manners of their life. They just learn to stay stuck. And so what a system will do is it'll help you break free from that cycle, but you've got to start by recognizing where in my business, where in my life is things harder than they need to be. I'm not efficient. I'm not moving fast. I'm not effective. It's not working like it should. And you begin to journal these things. And as you write them down, you begin to recognize, well, why am I tolerating this? Why am I tolerating this? Why am I tolerating this? And there has to be a better way. And so one of the things I'd like you to consider for 2021 is, where should I be creating systems or utilizing systems to make what I'm doing easier, more efficient, or more effective? So that's kind of the backdrop there. The next area is opportunities. You see, without enough opportunities, your business doesn't grow. Without enough opportunities, you don't sell. Without enough opportunities, you can't convert. You need sufficient opportunities. So you must generate opportunities. You've got to get in front of enough people with your message. And that doesn't matter what business you're in. You could be a wonderful shoe salesman with no one to talk to about shoes. You go broke. You could be a wonderful baker with no one to talk to about how amazing your cakes are, and you go broke. It doesn't matter what business you're in. Without enough opportunities, you go broke. And so you've got to generate opportunities. You've got to get people in front of your message. And so one of the challenges many people have is they are passive regarding their opportunities. They just kind of hope that enough opportunities will come in today. They hope that they'll have the conversation they need to have today. And you've got to develop a more proactive attitude about, what am I doing to generate opportunities? And in fact, what systems do I have that generate opportunities? What systems have I created to put myself in front of enough opportunities? And systems can be things like technologies. Systems can be things like rituals or habits that you have. Systems can be things that you've put in your daily practices, intentional acts. You might say, sending out, for example, sending out thank you cards is a system. Doing live video and live streaming video is a system. Getting on podcasts or starting a podcast is a system, right? It's a way that makes what you do more efficient or more effective, or it makes it easier to get your message out. And so you gotta ask, do I have systems right now for my opportunities, or am I just kind of letting them happen to me? Because if I'm letting them happen to me, if they're happening on accident, then it sounds like my goal is to be an accidental success. I'd like to be an intentional success, not an accidental success. And so you need to have opportunities. And so that would be the second part. And then you get to the work ethic. Most people would say, oh yeah, I'm willing to work, or yeah, I'm a hard worker. I rarely meet somebody who will publicly admit that they're lazy. So we all say, oh yes, I'm willing to put in the clock. I'm willing to put in the time. I'm willing to kind of do what it takes. People often ask me about my business and say, how long did it take you to build your business, or what did it take to build, to build a business like that? What did it take? I said, it took a lot of sleepless nights. It took a lot of, going to bed at 4 a.m, getting up at 7. A lot. And they say, really? I say, yeah, like a lot, like a lot of that is what it took. And that was before I even had a daughter. It was before I even had a child. That was when it was just me and my wife, and it's still many, many, many late nights and less sleep. And when you're building something and you want to get a lot of momentum underneath it, you need to put in the time. And that it's not just working hard, but it's also working smart. Again, it's not simply working on your in your business, it's working on your business. And that's where systems come in again. So you have to have work ethic. You have to be set. You have to say, what am I really doing to build this? How much time am I spending on it? I'll give you a frame of reference. In the United States, one of my great pleasures is a friend of mine. His name is Ali. Ali is the number one. He's the world record #1 automotive salesperson in the world. Has the highest record. Now, to give you context, because some of you may not have any context for how good he is, the national average of retail car sales in America is slightly over 10 in a month. So if you work at a car dealership, you will sell just over 10 cars as an average per month. If you're a dealer, if you're a dealership owner, and you want to get to 100 cars in a month, they all will have 11 salespeople on their team to get to 100, because they know there's always going to be these underperformers. And so on average, they anticipate getting to an average of 10 sales per month. And that's considered a good job. That's considered an acceptable level of performance, is to be at 10 cars in a month. To give you context, Ali Reda last month sold 209. He sold 209, and he had a personal best single day of 32. So he did in a single day what another salesperson would hope to accomplish over 3 months, and he did it in a single day. Now, Ali is an incredible man, and he's built so many wonderful systems that generate so much opportunities for him, that he can funnel these people. And every time, even within our own industry, as an automotive industry, when people hear about him, when they hear the story, they sit back in their chair and marvel, because in their frame of reference, they may be had a personal best of 3 cars in a day. Maybe they've achieved that, and they thought, oh my gosh, that took my whole day. Selling 3 cars took forever. How did somebody sell 32 in a single day? And the answer is systems, opportunities, and work ethic. Ali put in the work, building the systems that generated the opportunities, and then building the systems to handle the opportunities, and then continued putting in the work until he had built a company where, as a car salesman, he personally generated over $1 million in commissions last year. $1 million car salesperson. Now, every industry has people like this. Every industry has some outlier who's figured it out, cracked the code, figured out how to unlock potential in their market and in themselves. And you're no exception. In your industries, there's people who have cracked the code. There's people who have unlocked potential. There are the outliers. And Ali says it all the time. He says, really, basically anybody could have done what I did. They just don't want to. Anybody could have done what I did. They just don't want to. They're not willing to. They're not willing to. They would like to. You ask a room full of people, how many of you would like to have made $1 million last year? All the hands go up. Everyone in the room would like to, but are they actually willing to do what it takes? No, not even close. Not even close. And so I have this pleasure and privilege of working with so many high performers and learning and discovering the patterns and the psychology of their mindset and of their businesses. And one of the things that they have that I try to give to you just now is they have an overall philosophy of their business that understands that if I want to reap, I must first sow. I need to have systems, and I need to systematize what I'm doing, which means I need to bring consistency to it and structure to it. So for example, when building your own personal business, you need to say, I'm not going to be content to just casually and when it happens and when it comes up and accidentally, but I'm going to design a structure to what I do. I'm going to create consistency to what I do. I'm going to make a committed goal. So for example, I might say my goal this week is to have 5 meaningful conversations with somebody about my opportunity. My goal this week is to have 10 meaningful opportunities. So you set a goal, say, here's my goal. Then you say, okay, if I had to, if it was a must, if I must do this, what would be the way to most consistently get this message out there? How could I do this consistently? What do I need to do as a systematic way of addressing or solving this problem? And then you start asking yourself those questions, and you come up with all kinds of resources. In that moment, you say, okay, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this. You write down 3 to 4 things, and you say, okay, now of these 3 to 4 things, if I wanted to achieve this goal, what would be the most systematic way of consistently doing it? How do I do it on purpose, not an accident? And then you've mapped out your strategies. And then as you put those opportunities into your systems, which is into your presentations and into your offers, and you put them through your sales funnel, as that happens, you begin to look for the inefficiencies. Where, once I got in front of these people, where was I inefficient? Where was I ineffective at communicating what I was trying to communicate? Where did it get hard that it shouldn't have gotten hard? And then you start asking yourself, what do I need to do systematically to fine tune that process to make it more easy, more efficient, more effective? And then as you continue to do that, applying the work ethic, work smart and hard, you start to get momentum. And once you get momentum behind you, it's really a lot of fun. So this is the kind of backdrop I want you to have for 2021. I want to share with you that most people fail because of one of these 3 things, or a combination of them. They don't have any systems at all. So even if they have a lot of opportunities, they're haphazard and chaotic with how they're managed. They don't have any consistency of results. So without systems and you have lots of opportunities, you have chaos. If you have systems but no opportunities, there's not anybody to go through the funnel, so you're broke. If you have systems, opportunities, but no work ethic, you're not going to do anything with it, you go broke. You need all 3 to be successful. And so that's what I would encourage you to start developing and intentionally doing. Now, most of you are in a situation where you have leadership, you have mentors. So the other thing I'm going to give you is another big philosophical, psychological, differentiator between high performers and people who struggle and eventually fail. And here's what it is. I find that high performers are very, very good at asking for help the right way. And people who struggle and fail don't. I was sharing with my team yesterday. I said, I want you to imagine something. Imagine that you're swimming out in the ocean and you realize, I've probably gone too far. I need to come back. And then you cramp up and you go, oh my gosh, I'm cramping. Oh my gosh, the shore is too far. Oh my gosh, I'm starting to get scared. And you start to realize, like, I don't know that I can make it back by myself right now. Here's what I don't think you would do. I don't think you would go, hello, 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 hello. I could use some help. I could use some help. I could use some help. You wouldn't do that. That's not what people do when they're drowning. You know what they do? They flail. People scream and they wave, right? People who want to survive and not die, they flail. They flail. If you don't flail, people won't see you. If people don't see you, they can't come help you. I was telling the team, I said, many, many, many people have failed because they wouldn't flail so that they wouldn't fail. They wouldn't flail. They were so concerned with their pride. They were so concerned with how they were seen. They were so concerned with being seen as weak that instead they suffered in silence and completely failed and went under the water and no one even noticed. And I said, this happens so much to me. I'll get a message from somebody who will say, oh my, I'm in this really bad spot. My wife has left me. I'm losing my house. I don't know if I'll see my kids again. They're taking my car. I haven't had a check. I'm this, and this. And is there anything you can do to help me? And I'm like, where was this message 6 months ago before you were 16 feet under the water? I mean, why are you just now reaching out? It's incredible. And people do this so often. They struggle or suffer in silence. They say, yeah, I tried that and I wanted it to work, but it just didn't work out. Well, tell me, who did you reach out to for help when you were first struggling? Oh, well, I just thought I would figure it out. And you didn't. So what did you do? Well, it just didn't work out. It could have. It could have. So suffering and silence, struggling and suffering and not reaching out and not getting help. The highest producing people I know, the highest, most successful people I know, they submit themselves to coaches. They submit themselves to leaders. They put themselves in a position where they can receive wisdom and discernment and counsel from people who are further ahead than them. And they do it with humility, and they do it with an earnestness so that they can learn from that wisdom. But average people will not risk their pride. They will not risk their pride by asking for help. They stay stuck, suffer in silence, and they go underwater. And people go, what happened to that person? Oh, I don't know. I guess they just dropped off. And this happens too often in society, certainly in business. And so I'm going to encourage you that you need to be systematic. You need to be systematic about getting help and getting advice. And then, of course, following it, using the advice that you're given, taking action on it, and putting yourself at emotional risk of embarrassment. People ask me sometimes, because as a professional speaker, get up on stage, you talk to sometimes hundreds or thousands of people at a time. And of course, professional speaking is, for many people, it's considered one of the more terrifying things that you would have to do. I've been in major auditoriums, 40,000 people, and I'm on stage, and people say, how did you do that? I said, well, I learned a long time ago that another person's opinion of me, especially one who doesn't know me and doesn't genuinely care about me, should not get in the way of the things that I care about. I learned a long time ago that I should not allow my feeling of insecurity, or my feeling of fear, or my feeling of being judged, or my feeling of being embarrassed. I should not allow my feelings to be more important than my finances, or more important than my family, or more important than my future. That how I feel about prospecting, or how I feel about follow-up, or how I feel about rejection, that feeling should not have more value in my life than my family, or my finances, or my future. And so I simply choose to not care so much about my feelings. And I think more about what's important to me. And so I would encourage you to consider that when it comes to your business. You're going to have plenty of opportunities to not feel like it. Plenty of opportunities to not feel like it. And in those moments, if you choose your feelings over your family, over your finances, or your future, then that's your choice. But most, I think, in the room, if we were objective about it, would say, well, no, I care vastly more about my family, my future, and my finances than I do about how I feel. But when it comes to role playing, when it comes to practice, when it comes to making the call, when it comes to making the call back, when it comes to talking to a stranger, when it comes to these things, we get anxiety or stress, or we get fearful, or we start feeling ourselves go, I'm uncomfortable with that. I don't like how I feel. I say, okay, I understand. However, your success is just on the other side of your struggle. So what are you going to do about it? Because you can't have it both ways. You can't hold on to your feelings of insecurity and reach out and grab success. They don't work that way. You have to let go of it. You have to be willing to let go of one to grab the other. And so I encourage you all, as you're listening here today and you're thinking about your business, to start examining some of these areas. Where am I not being structured? Where do I not have opportunities? I need to create them. Am I putting in the work ethic to develop this? Where am I allowing my feelings to get in the way of my goals? Where am I allowing my pride to prevent me from growth? Where am I allowing my desire to protect my self-interests and protect my ego? Where am I letting that stop me from asking for help, or asking someone, hey, can I role play through something with you? Can I give you a scenario and role play with it? Where is that stopping me? Because this is where, if you fail, I can tell you with almost 100% certainty, if you fail, it'll be in these areas. It will not be that you failed because you didn't have a idea in your mind that you would like to have more success, or like to have more money, or like to have more freedom. Everyone in America, and certainly everyone in Europe, I imagine everyone in the world, if you ask the survey, how many of you would like more success, more freedom, or more financial stability or wealth? I think everybody could probably raise their hand on that. But that's not enough. It's just not even close to enough. You know, are you willing to put in the work? Are you willing to put in the commitment? Are you willing to humble yourself and be coached, and then follow through on the things your coaches tell you to do? Are you willing to keep a journal and recognize the opportunities where you're inefficient and ineffective, or where you've made it harder than it needs to be? So these are the things that I'm talking about constantly with teams. Now, obviously, within all this, you have to have skill sets. You have to have a skill set. So once you have this adopted philosophy, this kind of core background belief system that I've just described, and you say, okay, all that's good, but then you actually have to talk to people. And when you talk to people, you have to help people move through your sales funnel, sales process, your conversation, if you will. You have to help them move from point A to point B, and you have to have there are skill sets that can be refined. You can learn the language of influence. You can learn how to say things. There are different ways of saying things. I'd like to give an example, if I can, a story. And this story will help illustrate the importance of how you frame things. It's one of my favorite stories. It's a story of a preacher man who has two sons. And one of his sons comes to him and he says, "Hey, Daddy, is it okay if, while I'm supposed to be praying, if I also play my video games? Can I play my video games while I'm supposed to be praying?" And his dad says, "Well, no, son, you don't play your video games while you're supposed to be praying. You know, I wonder where you come up with these things. No, praying is a sacred time. You don't pray and play your video games. Where do you even ask? How? You're your mother's son. Get out of here." He sends his boy away. And his other son comes up to him. He says, "Hey, Daddy, I got to thinking about it. While I'm playing my video games, would it be okay if I also pray for people?" The father says, well, son, of course. Well, of course you could. Yes, of course. I mean, while you're doing anything, I'd like you to pray. If you want to play video games and be praying for people at the same time, I'd love for you to do that. You're such a good boy. You're such a good boy. And sends him on his way. And so the one boy goes and plays his video games and the other one doesn't. And what's the difference there? I mean, when you look at it, they both got essentially the same outcome presented to the dad. Can I play video games and pray at the same time? But how it was framed creates such a dramatic difference in how you would receive it. But what was it? What was it about the framing? Well, the framing was what? The one boy framed it in light of what he wanted. The other boy framed it in light of what the dad would want. And so when in sales, you're working on your sales process, when you're working on your, if you want to call it your messaging, some might call it your script or your sales funnel, when you're working on it, if you can remember the story of the preacher man with two sons, it'll help you to always ask, am I framing this in light of what they want to ultimately get to the outcome that I want? Am I framing this in light of what they want? Am I focused on them? Am I focused on what their goals are and their desires are? Or am I focused on my own? And if you focus on someone else when you're selling, if you really focus on the other person the entire time, you'll find that it's a lot easier to get them to ultimately do what's good for them and good for you, which is to buy or to sign up or to get on board. And so I want to share with you that when you're learning sales, a lot of objections that we get when you run into resistance, the reason you run into resistance is because you didn't frame what you were offering in light of their personal goals, their personal agenda, their personal wants, needs. And so because you didn't do it in light of them, they're objecting to what you're offering. After all, almost nobody would object to offering them what they want. But it's very easy to object to offering an offering that is framed from the perspective of what you want. And so a lot of times I see this as a mistake that salespeople make, or people make when they're early in their career of sales, is that their language patterns and their framing is not really framed from the person's perspective that you're trying to influence. It's framed from your perspective of what you're looking for, or what you have, or what you like, or what you want. A classic mistake, of course, is for the salesperson to show you a product and talk all about what they enjoy about the product, and not necessarily what you would enjoy about the product. And so I want to share with you a kind of a way of navigating those conversations. And I'm going to give you kind of a structure for that. And then we can maybe get into some examples and so forth. So when building out your word tracking, or building out your investigative process, and really building out your sales process, what you want to start with really is questions. So your sales process, or your when you're moving somebody through your business and getting them enrolled, always start with high value questions at the beginning, designed to get this person to tell you what it is they want, what are their goals, what are their ambitions, and so forth. If you can start from that, then from there you'll have the framework to present everything else in light of that. And so many of you will remember the story of Charles Dickens. You'll remember the Christmas Carol. Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol with Ebenezer Scrooge, right? Here's a simple way of remembering how to structure your conversation with somebody. You're going to remember it in the same way that Ebenezer Scrooge's life was transformed. You're going to use that same method to help other people's lives be transformed. And it was when his life was visited by 3 ghosts: the ghost of Christmas past, present, and future. So when I sit down with you, I'm going to use the 3 ghosts to help you transform and change your life. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to start by first identifying questions to get you to go into your past. We're going to talk about your past first. I might ask questions like this. In the past, have you ever started a business? I might say something like, in the past, have you ever been exposed to entrepreneurialism? I might say something like, in the past, were you ever able to interact with, or did you have anybody in your life who was financially successful and had freedom? I'm going to take them to their past. And I might, in fact, as an exercise, I might just take out a sheet of paper and write, what kinds of questions could I ask people that would open up their past? Tell me about your childhood when it came to money. Tell me about your childhood when it came to time. Tell me about your childhood when it came to this. What was that like? And get people to open up about their past, because people's past frames of reference matter. It helps you understand kind of what they're coming into this conversation with. And so I start with the past, and I get to show them a glimpse of their childhood, or a glimpse of their early formative years, or a glimpse of their own psychology towards these things. So we start with the past, and then we go to the present. We say, what's happening right now when it comes to some of these things? How would you say you're doing right now? What's going on in your life right now that would cause you to want to make a change? What's happening right now that would cause you to consider adding something like this, or making a new decision? Is there a reason why you accepted this invitation right now? What's happening right now that caused you to accept my invitation to this call? What caused you to be right now in a place where you were open or willing to look at this opportunity? What was it about the product that you heard about that caused you right now to want to learn more? And so you're going to bring them to the present, take them to a place right now where they get to intentionally pull out their subconscious mind, put it on the table, and say, this is where I'm at right now. And then you take them to the future, and you bring them into a possible realm. And you say, imagine that it was a year from now, or 2 years from now. What would you like it to look like? What would be your hope? If it could be different, what would you hope would be different? What would you like to see different? What would you want to see changed? If your financial situation was different, what would you hope it could look like? Bring them to the future and allow them to see a possible world that's different. And in that course of a conversation, as you do that, as you move people through this past, present, future process, you'll discover in the course of that conversation, you'll discover everything you need to know to then frame, in that moment, frame your offer in light of their goals in a meaningful way that causes people to say, yes, I need this, I want this, and thank you for showing it to me. And the more you do that, the more opportunities you give to do that systematically, right? Remember I said systems. The past, present, future, the Scrooge method is a system. It's a structured and consistent way that makes it more efficient, more easy, and more effective. So the more you use systems like that, and the more opportunities you have, if you put in the work to learn how to do this, if you do the exercises, you'll be more consistently successful. And so now, obviously, we could get into some micro examples. We've looked at it on kind of a macro scale here. We've kind of talked about kind of a big picture to how to look at sales, how to look at influence, how to look at moving people through a process, how to look at my own success. but I'd like to get into maybe a micro example or two. So I'd like to maybe open it up for some questions here. I'd like to maybe take a couple of scenarios that you're running into when it comes to your business, when it comes to your sales process and sales funnel. So I'd like to invite an opportunity. And I think the way that we're going to do this, if I remember, Deborah, we spoke about, we're just going to ask the audience if they want to maybe raise their hand. And then doing so, you can moderate that. But we can talk in kind of, again, a macro scale. We can talk on a very micro scale, a very specific situation you're running into, and we can maybe unpack that a little bit as well. But with that being said, I'd like to start to interact with you a little bit because even though I'm a professional public speaker and like talking to people, I also love talking with people. So I'd like to do that next, if that's okay.
That was awesome, Jonathan. Thank you so much. I've got so many notes from that session. If anybody wants to ask a question, there's a raise hand feature on the menu, so you can do that, or pop in the chat box if you want to ask a question, and then we don't have everybody unmuting at the same time, which just helps a clean recording. Jonathan, I have a question first. As part of our sales process, we run webinars, and on those webinars we have people, there could be multiple people. So what's the best way of applying what you've just said in terms of framing it in terms of what the customer wants when we've got all different types of people wanting different things?
Yeah, I suppose that's a great question, right? So, well, I would say, first of all, that even though you have lots of different people, typically what drove them to a webinar would be the same kinds of things, right? People fall into patterns. And so I think, like, for example, there's very generalized things like if I said, who in the room here would like to feel more healthy, fit, and vital, have more vitality every day, or more today than they did yesterday? I think that's something almost everybody in the room could raise their hand to. If I said, who would like to have more financial freedom or success? I think, again, that's something everybody else would raise their hand to. Who would like to reduce stress, reduce anxiety, reduce fear for their future? I think you could raise your hand and get a lot of people to do that. So, so when you're building out something like a webinar, I think you would have to, in that moment, speak to more of the broader term pain points or hope points that your audience that you've attracted to that webinar would be interested in, and focus and make sure that the language is framed in light of that. Also, depending on, again, your webinar, and this is where I'd have to ask some clarity too, Deborah, are these pre-recorded webinars? Are these live webinars happening real time with an audience? How are they happening?
Yeah, the live webinars, so we have people on them, and also the recorded, so that anybody who can't be on the live call can get a recording.
Yeah, so I think one way to do this, and this is again a great business strategy in general, a great system, is to make sure that you've accurately assessed what it is that has caused the current people to buy, and understand the motivations of your audience that's already done business. So, for example, if in my reputation of my company, the vast majority of people will choose me because of my authority. They say, you are the most trusted authority on a subject. So they're coming to me with all of the motivations around authority, which would be things like, this person's going to give me a more efficient way to get there. They're going to give me the most direct route. They have the most proven way, right? So that person's coming to me from that position or perspective. If I know that that's how most of my audience came to me, that was the motivation that I had established again with my current. Everybody's already said yes. That was a major theme. Then if I like that, then I would just make sure that I continue to drive that theme, and then the people will respond accordingly. But then somebody else might say, the reason I came to you is because of empathy or tonality, or I can sense your heart or something. So then obviously those people are responding to a different message. Well, if you think about it right now, within your organization or within the people who've already said yes, what are the major motivators or drivers? It's simply just asking the question, when you joined the company, what was it that caused you to say yes? What was the reason? And what you'll find is, if you do a survey or a poll, or if you ask enough people, is you'll find that the vast majority, there's probably 2 to 3 key motivators that cause people to respond first and to see the light first. So then those being the primary patterns, then what you would do is weave in those pain points or hope points into your presentations. And one of the ways you might weave them in, of course, is to do it through story, having testimonies or having someone share a personal experience from one of those three categories. So you might have somebody say, if you could have guests on a webinar, for example, or even a pre-recorded video, a testimonial, you say, you have somebody who was more motivated by the health factor. So they might say, I'm going to talk to you about why I saw this opportunity and took it seriously. My health was in such a situation. Here's my story. Somebody else, it could be for the financial hope and diversity of that. Somebody else, it could be literally because they've always wanted to have more freedom. And so they wanted to have more control over their future. But you would identify, because every company, every product or service attracts people for fundamentally the same 2 to 3 reasons, typically, as far as the majority, if you look like a bell curve, right? And so I would just understand from that perspective, why did people say yes in the past? Am I good with those answers? Are those legitimate good reasons? Yeah, okay. Then weave into my presentation those high pain points. And again, the majority of the audience should respond accordingly.
Oh, thank you so much. That's brilliant. We have Sharon Glover who'd like to ask a question. So Sharon, if you want to unmute yourself.
I'm unmuted. Hello. Thank you, Jonathan. Sorry I was late. I got the times mixed up. I was hearing you then talking about what first got you inspired to buy the product. Has reminded me why I first got inspired to buy the product, and that was because of the health benefits and the freedom. And I've got muddled now going down the business route, because I'm learning different things, which is all great, and I love that as well. But don't know what my question is. How can you unmuddle me? Like, because that is my passion, but
Yeah.
now my brain's all in, we're talking about systems, we're talking about, overcoming my fears. I'm doing live videos, which I never thought I'd do, and all these things.
Yeah.
So that bit's.
Yeah, so Sharon, I'm going to share something with you. Please forgive the bluntness of it to some degree, but there's an expression that says life is hard, success is hard, failing is hard, choose your hard, it all sucks, choose your suck. So it's just, I would say just kind of give yourself permission that it's okay to be muddled sometimes when you're building something. I mean, I'm spinning plates. I spin plates better than most people. That's why I can generate what I generate. But yeah, I'm spinning plates. And when I first started spinning plates, if you're familiar with the analogy, you see the guy on stage and he's got this plate on top of a stick and he's just like this, trying to balance it. And he's trying to spin this plate and then he grabs another one. He's spinning it and the whole audience is impressed until he grabs another one and grabs another one. And the reason why people bought tickets to the show is because this man can spin 30 plates. And the average person.
I love that analogy. That really, I like the visualization of that. So yeah. I'm mastering holding one up at the moment.
Yeah, and you know what? And before he could spin 30, he tried to spin one and crashed a lot of plates. It probably started with plastic plates, hopefully, right? So I mean, yeah, on some level, you just got to give yourself grace and say, I'm building something that is designed to be very, very successful for a long time, and that takes time to build, and there is complexity to it. And it is challenging, and it is somewhat emotionally overwhelming, and it is somewhat emotionally stressful. And that is why most people would never do it. And that's why most people fail. And that's why most people give up. And that's why most people will never have the life that I'm going to create. But it's worth it. And so I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to persevere, and I'm going to be disciplined, and I'm going to try, and I'm going to ask questions, and I'm going to find a system. And someone has figured out time management better than I have. And I'm overwhelmed with my time management, but someone has cracked this code. I can't be the first person to ask this question. What book do I need to read? What audio podcast do I need to listen to? Who do I need to seek counsel from? So the secret is not that you're not allowed to suffer. The secret is that you're not allowed to suffer in silence. So it's not that you don't suffer, it's that you don't suffer in silence. That's the mistake. That you don't just think I have to somehow solve this. No, someone else has solved this. You don't have to solve 99% of what you need to be successful. You don't actually have to solve it all. Someone else has already done that. You just need to be resourceful enough to create that a resource into your life, but it exists. I know that some of you were exposed to the GoPro conference, and I'm sure at some point someone referenced this, but your limitations are not a limitation of actual resources. It's a limitation of actual resourcefulness. Almost everyone fails for lack of resourcefulness, not lack of resources. The resources are abundant. They're everywhere. They already exist. You don't have to say, I have to come up with it. No. Someone already did. You have to model it. You have to adopt it. You have to adapt it. You may have to learn it, but you don't have to come up with it. 99% of your success will not be coming up with something. It'll be finding the thing that already exists and applying it. But here you are, you're spinning a plate, and you've added a new plate to your world, which is I'm trying to build this business, and then I'm trying to understand this product, and then I'm trying to understand team building, and I'm trying to understand what a webinar is. I'm trying to understand a technology, and you have to give yourself permission that you're trying to manage spinning plates so well that one day people will pay 500 pounds to sit in an audience to watch you spin plates. That's what you're building.
Yeah. Thank you. Spinning plates.
Awesome question, Sharon. Thank you. Who else has a question that they'd like to ask? Who's frightened of sales? What's your biggest fear? Or have you got enough from what Jonathan's already shared with us that you can turn around those fears and frame it in a different way? Ellen, do you want to take yourself off mute?
Okay, but I'm not frightened of sales or talking to people or any of those kind of things. Being coherent, maybe, not the other stuff. But what I wanted to, Jonathan, for you to talk to is about the value of, like, when you're building a team and your customers or the people you build relationships with, is that, do you have a system in place for the frustrations that people can have when they're either dealing with team members or they're dealing with their customers? Is that, see, I love to see the value in people. I love to see the gifts that are inside of people, the treasures are inside of people and everything else like that. But I know that within the industry, that it can become, I want to pull my hair out moments kind of a thing. I think that how we approach our day in business, how we set the morning out for the day, changes our day, changes how we're going to respond to people out. And I wondered if you had found something that helped you get through the whole day with your customers, because you deal with a lot. You mean, even now you go on to car lots, don't you? And you'll show the salesman, this is how you do it, right? You'll go out there, and you also deal with people you work with in teams.
Yeah.
How do you set your day for that so that you always have that good positive and bring that vibrant energy?
So I think it comes from, I've learned the tension and the delicate balance of two what seem to be completely opposing concepts. And I've learned to live in the middle of the tension of these two ideas, that I'm a man who has ridiculously high standards while also maintaining very low expectations of others. So the tension of those two worlds is that for my sales teams, I have ridiculously high standards for my teams. Like I know what's possible, so I expect and hope for nothing less than greatness for them. And yet at the same time, I know human beings, and therefore I know that my expectation that they'll actually follow through is incredibly low. And what this does for me, or at least what it does for me, and again, it's a delicate balance to walk, but what it does for me, it allows me to have an abundance of grace towards people, while also wanting the absolute best for people constantly. But I realized that, in order to be a leader, I think, like, one of the things management say this all the time to me. They say, John, what do you do when it's clear that you want it for them more than they seem to want it for themselves? Like, how do you deal with that when you've got people that you want it for them more than they apparently want it for themselves? I said, I think what you do is you realize that the moment you stop wanting that, and the moment you stop feeling that way, is the moment you should resign as their leader. After all, the leader should be the person in front with the clearest vision of where we're going. The leader should be the one who maybe has been to the promised land before, right? You've been to the promised, I've seen the promised land. It flows with milk and honey. I know, I've seen it. I know you don't know, but I did. I saw it. I know. Follow me. and you want to take them there more than they want to go there, because you actually know where we're going. And so a leader's role would be to see with clarity where people could go and take them there against their initial will. But so I think that, when I'm with a customer, I anticipate that customers are going to be unreasonable. I anticipate that people are going to give objections that are either deceptive objections or objections that are delusional. They're literally just, these people just aren't even rational. I know that they're going to do it, out of fear. I know that. So I want people to have, whatever I'm offering. I want them to have that, but I don't expect them to just flop over and say yes. I don't expect them to just give up their pride and just say yes. So I have very low expectations. So I'm rarely disappointed. I mean, you think about it, like the very nature of disappointment needs expectations that are unmet in order for it to exist. Right? That is actually what causes disappointment. So because I almost never have high expectations about almost anything when it comes to people. And this sounds crazy because it's really a weird tension, because I have seen and helped so many people be successful. So you would think I would expect that it happened all the time, but no, I don't. That way I'm always pleasantly surprised. Like, hey, they actually did it. Wow, somebody actually did the homework. Somebody actually took notes. It's awesome. I'm blown away. I'm in a constant state of pleasantly surprised, because I talked to 100 people. I asked them all to take notes. One did. Whoa, that was amazing. That's awesome. So it's part of that is that, I know it's possible. And so I when I'm talking to people who are, for example, on my team, and my dynamic is a little bit different, but I ask people, I said, do you want me to lower my standards for you? I know as your leader, as your coach, as somebody trying to help you, I will lower my standards for you. I'll lower them if you ask me to. I tell my students all the time, I'll lower my standards. Just ask me to, and I'll lower them. Do you see what you want? They say no. I say, okay, well then I'm going to have very high standards. I said, now what are you going to do about it, right? But I think it really comes down to grace and empathy. I mean, really, what it is I realize within my own life, if I'm honest with myself, the moments that I give myself permission to be completely honest, I realize that I'm a broken man. I'm a man with a heart that's desperately wicked, that seeks its own, that if I could really just do whatever I wanted, I would just be lazy more than I am now. I would be gluttonous and just sit around. I might, who knows, I might just enjoy doing nothing but eating cake. Being generous and kind, which some people say, I'm natural at. I don't know how natural it is. I mean, I think it is, I guess, sometimes now, because I think I've conditioned it to some degree into my heart, but really, I like greed too. I like being selfish too. So I think, like, I look at myself and I say, how many times have I set a goal I didn't meet? How many times have I made a promise I didn't keep? How many times have I, so I try to remember my own humanity. The people I'm talking to, they're just human beings. They're broken. Scripture teaches that there's a way that seems right to man, the end of which is death. People are prideful. People are prideful. Their hearts are filled with pride. Their hearts are filled with envy. I mean, it doesn't mean they're wicked all the time or anything like that, but I mean, we all have lost our temper and snapped at someone we love. And yet if we watch someone else do that, we go, aghast. To speak like that, well, you've done the same thing. What are you talking about? I just try to be gracious and recognize that, I'm talking to people who are fearful. If I'm talking to somebody about a business model, opportunity, I'm talking to somebody about success and finances and financial freedom, and I'm talking to these things. You talk about, becoming a millionaire. The average person has never given themselves permission to even imagine that it could be them. They just don't think that way. And so, sometimes, you have to temper yourself, because you realize, like, they don't even understand this language. It's not even in their mind to believe that they could do this. Most people, like I said, they've developed coping mechanisms. They've learned to cope with the hand that's been dealt to them, instead of getting up and moving to a different table, playing a different game. I'm not going to play this poker game. I'm going to go play Parcheesi instead. I want to go play Scrabble. It's my favorite game. It's like, get away from, move away from the table. If you don't like the hand you've been dealt, shuffle the cards. Do something. But people they settle so quickly, and I know that about people. And so I just try to be gracious, and I have really high standards for myself, while maintaining very low expectations of others, because we live in a broken world where people have been told, you can't, you won't, you're not going to, not you, you're not special enough, you're not smart enough. And I'll tell you, Mom, you from a very, very early age, you told me I could, you told me I would, you told me I should. And I learned that, I'm blessed that way. I was given that gift way earlier than most people. And so I gave myself permission, I remember setting goals, 12 years old, writing down, I'm going to make $100,000 by the time I'm 25, when I'm an old person, when I'm old at 25 years old, I'm going to make 100 grand, from a 12-year-old, like no frame of reference for what that meant, except that I wanted to write down a big number that seemed impossible. Might as well have been $1 trillion. But I did it, and since then, so much more. So yeah, I don't know, that's part of it probably. I'm sure there's more, but I would say grace is the number one answer when dealing with other human beings.
Excellent.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. That's so valuable. I have another question about when people say no. Mm-hmm. What do we do? Do we just let them go? Do we persevere? Do we keep drip feeding them? What's your...
Yeah, so there's two ways of looking at no that are helpful, I think, in sales. And they both require you to modify the no a little bit. So one way to look at it, to modify the no, is to just take the word no, and you're going to add 2 letters to it. You're going to put a K in the front and a W at the end, and it's going to be no. I don't know. I don't know. Not no, I don't know. So when someone says no, if you can turn it into they don't know, not they're saying no, but they don't know, that's helpful to me to remember that. They're not saying no, they're saying I don't know. So what is it they're saying they don't know? That's the next step. When somebody says no, it's oftentimes that what they're really saying is I don't know enough yet to be able to say yes. I don't know enough about what I would be saying yes to, or I don't know enough to know why I would say yes yet. So it's a lack of knowledge. And in some cases, that's really all it is they don't know enough about the product, or they don't know enough about the business, or they don't know enough about what would be required of them. And so they may be saying no, and it's really a no from a place of ignorance. And then another one would be to take the word no and add a T to the end of it, and then you end up not. And I say what they're saying is not no, but they're saying not yet. So you're not saying no, you're saying not yet. And that's another way I think that's helpful. And so when I'm talking to somebody, if they start saying no, I might follow up and say something along the lines of, I get the impression that there's something that you don't think that you know about what I'm offering, or I get the impression that you feel like you're not able yet to say yes because of something that you don't understand or don't know yet. If, and this is another way of again dealing with no, is just ask people, 2 questions. What is it about what I shared with you that if you said yes, would cause you to want to say yes? So that's another thing. I flipped the no around into a hypothetical yes. So I realized, like, in the back of my head, this is more of the language of my mind, is I say, okay, they said no, which means they don't know, or not yet, not yet, not yet, not yet. So something's missing. Something's missing that would cause them to say yes. And then I say, okay, so I know there's a missing variable. That's all that no means right now is there's some sort of missing variable in my head. So I go, okay, so there's a missing variable to them saying yes. Then I switch it to say, okay, but if they did say yes, I'd be curious why they would. Because do they see any value yet in what I've said? Because obviously, when you go back to the fundamentals of what a sale is, right? A sale is an exchange of value, right? Somebody's saying, I give up one thing of value to take the thing of value, or accept the thing of value you're offering. That's all sales is. Like I said that in the beginning, it's an exchange of value. It's a mutual, willing exchange of value. Well, in order for there to be exchange of value, there must be perceived value to begin with, right? Now, clearly, the greater the perceived value, the more a person is willing to say yes. So that's also true. So when somebody says no, I think, okay, they do not yet see value, or they don't know where the value is enough. So that's what kind of the dialogue of my mind. Then when I'm talking to the person, I'm going to try to explore if they're seeing any value in what we've done so far. So I might frame it like this, Deborah, if I was talking to you and say, you know, John, I appreciate meeting, you know, I appreciate everything. I just don't, you know, right now, it's, you know, it's not something I'd be interested in. I say, you know, Deborah, I certainly appreciate that. I am curious of the things that we talked about. If you were to say yes, let's say if you were, is there anything about what I showed you that's interesting or intriguing, or that might cause you to say, you know what, if I said yes down the road, or if I said yes at all, you know, what is it about what we've talked about that you didn't like or you saw value in? Now, at that point, then I'm trying to get your brain to reverse itself from the no position, which is focusing on the reasons you would say no, to the positive position, which is focusing on the reasons you might say yes. And what I can do in doing that is I can get you to now imagine saying yes, and begin to share with me the aspects of it that would cause you to say yes. And that's the framework I'd start objection handling from. I need to get you into a positive state first, where your focus is on positive first. Then from a positive state, begin to unearth the whatever obstacles there might be. So once you begin to say, well, I mean, obviously I think that the technology is interesting, or I like being part of this, or I like the fact that you guys offer this, or I like the fact that it has potential for this. So sure. And now, in the light of the things you just shared with me that are positive, what aspects of it have caused you to say, not yet? I don't know that I'm willing to look at this yet. You know, I don't know that I'm ready to make a commitment yet. What's the parts you're not sure about? And then, in the light of the positive context, get the negative objection out from you, and get you to kind of talk a little bit about that. So that's a very simple sequence. So in my head, no means they don't know. No means not yet. It doesn't mean no, go away. It means I don't know enough, and not yet, because I don't know enough. And then I go, okay, so what do you feel like you did see value in? Get you to talk a little about that. Then in the context of the things that you saw value in, switch to, so you just shared these positive things, and yet you still said you're not sure. So what is it for you that you're not sure about? And that will give them permission then, and if you want to say in a safe place emotionally, to open up. I'll also give you one more tool real quick on, again, on word tracking and framing, because I think it's helpful sometimes to know how to design some of these questions, or how to design some of these responses. And so I'll talk about this in the term. I use a lot of acronyms sometimes. So I'll say this one's going to be how to ride the wave of emotions in sales, the wave of emotions. So we're going to do, again, WAVE, wave. And wave is going to stand for 4 emotional ideas. And when you weave these 4 into a conversation, into a presentation, or into objection handling, they are very powerful. And so each of these 4 letters, wave, stands for want, appreciate, value, and enjoy. Want, appreciate, value, and enjoy. Want, appreciate, value, and enjoy. So if I'm having a conversation with Deborah, I say, Deborah, when you think about some of the things you want to see different in your business, or in your life, or in your finances, what sorts of things do you want to see different? So I want her to talk about what she wants. And then as I describe my services, my product, my company, my opportunity, my team, I'm going to say things like, you know, Deborah, one of the things that I appreciated about the team that I'm in is I appreciated XYZ. And I might say, now, is that something that you would appreciate having? Or, you know, you mentioned that you want a more healthy this because of this. Our system, our technology, our tool, our team, our resources provide this, XYZ. Is that something that you think you would appreciate having? Would you appreciate that? And they'll say yes. And then as I'm talking, I'm going to find a way to weave in the concept of value. I say, you know, some of our team members say that they really value the fact that they don't have to do this on their own. They value the fact that they're part of a team. They value the fact that we'll have regular coaching calls and you get access to mentorship. Is having people like that and a support system like that something you see value in? Is it something that you would value having too? And then they're going to say, yes, that's something I would definitely see a lot of value in. And then, of course, you get into the enjoy. The enjoy is the part of experiencing the end result. You say, I know that I enjoy the fact that I feel more healthy. I enjoy the fact that I know I'm building financial freedom. I enjoy the fact that I'm building a team of people and changing people's lives. These are some of the things I enjoy. I'm curious, would you enjoy having more financial freedom, having more physical vitality, and building a team like I'm building? Do you think you would enjoy that? And they're going to say, yes, I'd enjoy that very much. So if you get that part early in the process, speaking in terms of what someone wants, speaking in terms of what they would appreciate, what they value, and what they would enjoy, if you ride that wave early in the conversation, early in the presentation, early in the offer, if you do that early, and then you come to the point of resistance because still you're dealing with a human being who has fear, you're still dealing with a human being who has limiting beliefs, you're still dealing with a human being that has this yeah but in the back of their brain, that even though they hear all this stuff, they say, yeah, but not you, yeah, but not you, yeah, but not you, yeah, but you've never, yeah, but you can't, yeah, but what will your friends say, yeah, but, yeah, but, yeah, but, yeah, but, yeah, but. I call it Mr. and Mrs. Yeah, but, the most nagging people on the planet. Mr. and Mrs. Yeah, but, shut up, Mr. and Mrs. Yeah, but, I ain't got time for you. But the yeah buts of the brain, right? I know that the yeah buts exist. So even when I get the objection, then I just reframe the conversation back to the wave. I say, something along the lines of, in light of what you just shared with me, do you feel like you still want the things that, do you want this? Do you think that you would appreciate this? You mentioned that you saw value in this. You mentioned that you would enjoy this. Do you still feel that way though? And get them to kind of realize, because if they can get enough of that, if they can ride that wave enough, it'll get them enough momentum to come all the way into the shore. So that's another thing that I think is helpful to framing your language. And again, you can just write down WAVE, want, appreciate, value, enjoy. And then once you have that those core words written down, then you start to just kind of weave into your conversation naturally those 4 points of hope. And as you speak the language of hope to people, their hope rises. And if you speak enough hope into somebody, they'll believe anything's possible, even their own potential.
Oh, that is amazing. Oh my God. Well, I feel quite tearful after that. Jonathan, we've got 2 more questions. The first one's from Francesca, who's been unable to raise a hand and she's been private messaging me. And then we've got Caroline. So Francesca, if you go first.
Jonathan, this is just brilliant. Thank you. Thank you so very much for this. And a question came up while you were explaining all that. And I was just thinking, are you talking specifically when someone has approached you? Like they've come to you for something, or they've come to a webinar or a training? Or would you go through all those questions if you happen to have met somebody, say, at a party, if we're ever allowed to go to those anymore?
Yeah, no, I would say whenever you're able to have what I would call a meaningful conversation or connection with somebody, you could enter into this conversation, right? So, yeah, no, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, you really could, over chat, over a Facebook message. You could ask this. You could turn it into a text-based thing. You say, you messaged me and asked me what I was doing. I'd like to ask you a few questions if that's okay. In the past, have you ever built a business? Or you could go the Scrooge method, right? And you could do that over a text chat and just be back and forth messages. This could be either way. I mean, really, I could probably again, I'm the son of my mother. I could walk up to any stranger on the street and use this process. But no, I think we're talking about when you have an opportunity to have a meaningful dialogue. So if that's them come to you, you come to them. You've got a hand raiser from a lead generation site. The moment you're able to start a dialogue with somebody, I would incorporate this process from the beginning.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. And then there was another question that came up earlier. I've been trying to think, what do I feel about sales apart from I just go into anxiety? And but I realize one of the things that goes on for me is I have a level of doubt about what I'm offering. So for example, in this, we're talking about Healy, which I think is a really, really cool tool. I use it. I think it's great.
Yeah.
But I don't know that it will help everybody do everything or anything that they want. And so there's a fear in me that I'm leading them to a path that they might want, but it might not be able to give them. And that frightens me. And that also frightens me in another business that I run that I didn't realize until just now. So I'm delighted that I've unearthed that. But yes, I wonder if you have any advice how to handle that, really.
Well, sure. Well, certainly you need to know your product and not make claims your product can't effectively do. Like if I was selling you a whisk and I told you it also peels potatoes, probably not efficiently, right? So, I mean, it's a kitchen tool, but it's not the only kitchen tool, and it's not an all-in-one kitchen tool. So if, yeah, I mean, your product or service solves a specific niche, and that's sufficient. Like, I mean, a whisk serves a specific niche and it's sufficiently sold for that niche. It's okay to have a product that does one thing really, 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 really well, and that people buy it for that reason. And so, obviously part of that is making sure that, yeah, your audience understands, starting first with what you understand. You understand what the primary benefits are of what you're offering, in the form of the Healy product. What are the primary benefits that it offers? And then you could use the wave process if you wanted to solicit from them whether or not that is something that they would want, if they would appreciate those benefits, if they would see value in having a technology like that, and if they would enjoy the benefits that it provides. Want, appreciate, value, enjoy. I could do that with virtually anything, right? So once the person articulates, and that's part of the process of asking questions, is to get the person to get their brain to recognize the things that you're saying. Because obviously you can say things, but that doesn't mean that they believe things. So it's much more important for them to say things, because I will always believe my opinion about something much more than I'll believe anybody else's. So get them to articulate their opinion of the value, their opinion of what you're offering. And that's simply the process. And by the way, the process is a process of elimination. The process of sales is a process of elimination. Not everyone is going to be a candidate for what you offer. Not everyone's going to be a good candidate for what you offer. And there might be certain functions within what you offer that out of the 10 things that something can do, there might literally be only one aspect of it that really applies to them. But if that applies in a meaningful way, you still provide a meaningful solution. And so sales really, especially to the person who genuinely loves people, sales is one of the highest forms of gift you can give to someone. Helping someone solve a problem in a meaningful way and offering it to them in an exchange of value. Because when we exchange value, when I take my money, something I value very much, and I give it willingly for something that you've offered me, what I've said is I'm willing to, in this case, sacrifice something of value, my $10 bill or my $100 bill or my $1,000. I'm willing to sacrifice something of value because what you shared me has so much value that I'd rather have it than what I have right now, this $1,000 or this $500, this $100. And so there's this exchange of value that happens mutually. What I'm saying is the benefits of what you provide are much more valuable to me than the benefits of the money in my pocket. And that's a great gift you give somebody, because you're giving people value, because sales is really exchange of value. That's all it is. And so there should be no anxiety when you make a sale or when you try to sell something to somebody. The only anxiety, if you will, is that you do it with ill intent. But I seriously doubt anybody who's in this room would ever sell with ill intent, sell for simply the manipulation of a person's money. I doubt that anybody in this room would ever do that. So as long as you have good intent, and you, of course, don't misrepresent your product, if somebody should buy from you, there should feel no anxiety.
Brilliant. That's so helpful. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah.
Great question, Francesca. Caroline, if we come to you.
Thank you. Well, funnily enough, my question was a little bit like Francesca's, which was any tips on selling to people that you know really well?
Yeah, sure. I think that when you're selling to somebody that you know really well, the first tip is don't think you know them. Pretend you don't. Okay. Pretend you don't, because we tend to make assumptions. And this is one of the classic errors that a lot of people make in sales. When they think they're selling to someone they know, they put on their assumptive hat. They assume they know the reasons where they would say yes or no, or the objections. They assume too much is probably the challenge. That's the hardest part about selling to somebody that you know, is that you become more relaxed and you let your systems down. You break down your systems. You skip steps, so to speak. That's a very, very common error what you call a rookie mistake. But so I think that one way to do that, and to do that in a both a casual and fun way, is to use what I call the elephant in the room approach. The elephant in the room approach is to recognize the potential awkwardness of a situation, recognize the potential, as the saying goes, elephant in the room that no one seems to want to talk about. To recognize that and to verbalize it. So what I might do is, let's say, for example, Caroline, that you and I are friends, and I want to come to you with this, and I say something along the lines of, hey, Caroline, I have something I want to talk to you about, but I want to confess that it's something that I've actually felt very awkward about. And the more I thought about talking to you about it, the more awkward it became in my head. And the more I had a conversation in my head about talking to you and about a conversation, and the more I felt stressed. And I thought, why am I feeling stressed talking to Caroline? She should be the least stressful person on the planet I could talk to. And so I'm telling you this because I'd like to have a conversation with you. And I just wanted to say the elephant in the room is I feel awkward, and I shouldn't. And simply saying I feel awkward about something would cause, if you imagine in their brain, they're like, oh my God, what does she want to talk to me about? This is distressing to her, right? Like, what in the world are we about to talk about? Like, I'm so now I'm feeling anxiety. What are we about to discuss? And then at that point, when you say, you may know that I've recently joined and started my own company. And I'm sure you may have heard of that, or I may have mentioned it. And I've been meaning to talk to you about it. But quite frankly, for some reason, I feel stressed. And I know you would never, ever, ever give me a good reason to, but I do. And so can we speak about it? But I'd like to, and here's the elephant in the room. I'd like to talk to you about it, but I'd like to talk to you about it and almost pretend that we're strangers. I'd like to pretend we're strangers when we do. And I'd like to, if you'd allow me to, I'd like to pretend that I have to get to know you when I'm talking to you about it. Can we try that? I say, sure. And then see what happens when you confess the awkwardness, when you confess the elephant in the room, when you point out the tension disappears instantly. It's when we leave the elephant, when we leave the tension, that it only grows. But when you talk about the tension, it dissipates instantly. And so when it comes to selling friends, I oftentimes will tell my students, I say, tell them in advance, even though we know each other, I'd like to act like I don't, because I don't want to make any assumptions. I don't want to make assumptions. And so then you begin your process, you use your system, and you go to the Scrooge method. And you say, I'd like to ask you, in your past, in your childhood, did you ever, and then you go into whatever the chain of events that you want to walk through with that person, but ask from a place of discovery. And if you adopt that approach, you'll find the conversation is both enjoyable, it's fun, it's different, and it's less stressful.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Great question, Caroline. And I'm sure we're doing a challenge at the moment, for people to overcome the fears. And I'm sure some of these tips are going to be so valuable to those that are doing the challenge. Jonathan, if somebody has anxiety when they're doing Facebook Lives or calling people, what's the best way for them to prepare themselves, the mindset, before they actually go online or before they make that call?
Yeah, I think I want to reference back, I believe it was the conversation I had with Sharon earlier. Doing Facebook Lives, whoa, that's uncomfortable. Yeah, and so is staying stuck. Doing Facebook Lives, I don't know how I feel about that. Yeah, well, being broke sucks too. It's choose your suck. I don't know what else to say. The reality is, people sometimes ask me, how do you stay motivated? I say, I have bills and I have goals. Pick one, pick both. Who else is going to pay them, and who else is going to achieve them but me? Like my bills and my goals. It goes back to, I think, what I said earlier about, ultimately on the scale of things I care about, do I truly care more about my feelings or about my finances, my future, my family? What do I really care more about? Because I'm putting so much energy into this negative emotion called fear, anxiety, stress, uncertainty, insecurity. Is that really what I value so much that I'm willing to give it the power? Is that what I'm really willing to do? Choose it over what's possible, my potential? Am I really going to give it the power? So part of the preparation is the recognition that it's not a choice between easy and hard. It's a choice between hard and hard. choose your hard. That's what it is. Now, over time, the hard thing that you choose regularly gets easy. Over time, right? Over time, the hard thing gets easy. But in the beginning, it's choose your hard. It's nothing but a choose your hard marathon. That's what success is. It's a choose your hard marathon. It's a constant, everyday wake up, choose your hard. Choose what sucks the most. Choose which one, because you're going to choose one of them, you know, eventually. So I can say this. I can say your first video will be terrible. So will your third and your 33rd. A really good chance that until you get to 101 videos, they're not going to be good. And you probably, most likely, will not die. That's statistically likely. That doing a video won't kill you. So I just tell people all the time what happens, and this is a little bit of an economic principle, but it's like a psychological and economic principle. So we can attach it to things like this. For example, it's called the quantity then quality principle. So the quantity quality principle works like this. If you look at, for example, when you buy a product, like for example, you buy a TV, buy a blouse, buy jewelry. What you'll typically do is, most people will do, is they'll buy along a certain quality. They'll buy a certain kind of brand of TV or something. Let's say they buy a TV, and the next time they buy a TV, they'll buy something along the same quality, and they'll add a quantity. They'll get a second TV in the house. And then at some point, maybe it's the third TV, maybe it's the fourth TV, but they'll buy another TV. But this time they'll go, well, I already have two like this. I'm going to get a little bit nicer one this time. They'll upgrade, and they'll get an increased quality. And they'll do this with a type of outfit or jewelry or whatever, but they go, okay, now they'll do that for a little bit. And then again, they'll upgrade their quality. And so you do this quantity, then quality, then quantity, then quality, then quantity. And we all do this in our lives. And this is also true, by the way, with any kind of habit building that we do. For example, if you're starting to do videos, the first videos you do, you're doing a certain quantity at a certain level of quality. You're doing a certain level. Over time, it could be the third, fourth, fifth, it could be the sixth. At some point, though, you'll go, you know what makes sense is I probably need to have the light source in front of me instead of behind me, washing me out. And I probably need to look into the lens of the camera instead of looking at the screen and looking at myself the whole time I'm talking to my audience. And so eventually you go, looking at the lens makes the video at the end look better. And I might find myself going, you know what I found? That if I hold the camera, if I have the camera at an elevated view and I'm looking up into the camera, it elongates my neck. And it just makes me look a little bit younger and a little bit prettier. And so you look up into the lens instead of looking down, creating jowls and up your nose. And over time, what happens is when you do enough quantity, you'll increase your quality. You'll refine it. And you can do this with almost anything. I mean, you can look at TV shows, movies, look at podcasts. If you go back 5 years ago to a podcast that today has 14 million hits, you go back 5 years ago and you look at their setup of their podcast then, and look at the setup 5 years later, you'll see their setup was like in a garage or something. You know, they had one microphone and, you know, no lighting, and they had one camera angle. And now they got, 4 camera angles switching with sound and intro. Quantity, then quality, then quantity, then quality. When it comes to producing things like video content or putting your posts out there, the mistake people make is they want their first one to be so high quality. It doesn't work that way. It never in the history of humanity has ever worked that way. You're not going to, I will give you a limiting belief. You're not going to be the first person in society ever to create the first video ever that was the best video that you've ever created ever, that you'll ever create. You will create better video in the future than the one you create, the first one you create. So it's quantity first. It's produce the content first. Get out there first. Get uncomfortable. Choose your suck. It's going to suck. So is staying stuck. Staying stuck sucks. Staying stagnant sucks. Being complacent sucks. Being financially stuck sucks. Choose your suck. I'm going to be uncomfortable for a moment so I can have freedom forever. I'm going to be uncomfortable for a moment so I can have freedom forever. I'm going to choose my suck. So that's really what it takes. And then it just takes doing it.
Thank you. Perfect. I'm respectful of your time, Jonathan. Can you just let people know how they can buy your book? And then I want to hand over to Ellen to close.
Yeah, so I appreciate that. So I do have a book that I co-authored that made it to an Amazon bestseller status. Now, I don't know that I would recommend that book to this audience, only because it was a very hyper niched book in the genre that I wrote it in. I was writing it to automotive dealers specifically about their processes at their company. And so I don't know that that particular thing would be of value and of great value to the audience here. I will instead say that if you'd like to, I'll give you a different resource that I think would be more helpful to the general audience here. And I've encouraged, actually, I shared with my mother recently that I'd like her to look into it. And over time, I'd love to see your whole team. And it's a new resource that's recently become available, and it's called Clubhouse. It's the Clubhouse app. The Clubhouse app is just an environment. If you're not familiar with it, it's like imagine like a talk show podcast where you can listen in to some of the greatest minds and greatest conversations in real time. Raise your hand, much like we're doing here. Ask a question and get feedback, or listen in on others. Imagine going to a conference like the GoPro event that was happening. Imagine there was 50 conferences like that happening simultaneously, and you were in the hallway, and at any moment as you're walking through the hallway, you could see a sign that says, right now we're talking about financial freedom, right now we're talking about cryptocurrency, right now we're talking about goals, right now we're talking about self-doubt and fear. And you just walk down the hallway and you go, ooh, this looks like an interesting room. And you walk in the door and you see a stage and you're listening and you go, this is really interesting. So you take a seat and then you say, hey, I've got a question, raise your hand. They give you the microphone. Now you get to ask a question. And then somebody really likes what you said and said, I think you're brilliant. And they bring you up on stage and put you in the stage. And now you have a seat at the table. That's what the app Clubhouse is like. And I just think from a perspective of adding value to you, I would encourage you. Now, here's the limitations. There's some limitations. To get on Clubhouse, you would need to have an iPhone or an iPad, because right now it's only available there. And it's also only available by invite only, which means you have to have someone in the Clubhouse invite you into the Clubhouse, or you can't get in the Clubhouse. It's that posh. Right. So I would encourage you guys to check that out. Certainly, as far as my material, I'm available on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me, which is where I spend most of my time. You can find me there. But again, most of my content is niche written and delivered to the automotive community. You could extract things from it, but you would have to really do so, because it's today's presentation is more of a general broad. But my core competency, my core audience that I serve is the automotive industry. So most of what I'm talking about is how to help people sell cars and buy cars and things like that. That being said, I appreciate it. I think, Mom, are you good?
Yep. Am I muted?
No, you're good.
Ellen, you've just muted yourself.
No, you weren't muted.
Okay. I just wanted to say, this is why I brag on my son. Okay, for all of you, what I do, I'm doing a shout out for my son. Now you know why I say that. So, and the other thing is, of course, I always encourage women in our group, because I always tell them how awesome, how amazing, because I know they are amazing, incredible people. But so we're very assignment orientated. So I think everybody knows now what the deal is. We're going to take a few of these things. I'm going to work on them. And so I was wondering, Jonathan, could you come back in a couple of months with some more of your brilliance? And because you talked about Ali, can you bring him with you?
Oh, I'm sure he'd be happy to do something like that. Yeah, I could make that work. Yeah.
Oh, great. So we can set that up for a couple of months, okay? And so thanks, honey. I love you. I love you the most.
You say that to Maya. You say that to all of your kids. You say that to all your friends.
I say it to all of these people too.
If people didn't know how abundant your heart was, they'd begin to doubt that you have the capacity to love everyone the most.
But sometimes, Jonathan, people actually do challenge me on that, and they don't realize how much I love. That's my whole purpose, is to give love. God given to me, and I give it out.
So I'm gonna, if I may close, I'd like to close by taking a second to just honor my mother. She spoke hope into my life at an early age, like you would think all mothers should, but not necessarily do all children receive hope at an early age. I would encourage you to take from this a message of hope to the people that you talk to. It's amazing what a seed of hope can grow into. And because of her influence and the fact that she gave me such great hope as a child, to believe for anything is possible, to achieve anything, and then to help me develop the disciplines to pursue those things, I'm now in a position now where I'm able to influence and change the lives of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people through a message of hope. So I just want to speak the word hope to all of you. Hope for a better 2021, a hope for a better future, hope for better relationships, of course, for health and for financial freedom. I'd like you to learn the language of hope. I'd like you to be a person filled with it and somebody who's able to give it to others. We're in a world right now that desperately needs it. And so leave here today filled with hope, overflowing and pouring into other people's lives. And in closing, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pray. So Father God, I just lift up this audience to you. I thank you so much for my mother. I thank you for the gift that she is to so many people. I thank you for the ability she has to speak hope into people's lives. I pray right now for the conversation that just happened with this group of people, that you would minister to these people a message of hope, that you would increase their hope for their future, their hope for their capacity, for their potential. God, I ask that you give them divine appointments of conversation, that you give them a peace that rests on them when they enter those conversations, that you'd bring to remembrance the things we talked about, but they would also be good stewards with the things that I've given to them, that they would talk about them, practice them, that they would do the exercises that I've asked them to do and prepare themselves for their future. And in preparation, God, that preparation, when it meets opportunity, would provide for them a wonderful outcome. I pray, of course, for Deborah for creating this group and creating this opportunity, for Cindy, of course, as well, for introducing my mother and her to this opportunity, this group, for the introduction that Cindy gave me today. I thank you for everybody in this room and just ask for blessings for 2021. And I thank you for these things in Jesus' name.
Amen.
All right. Love you guys. Bye.
Love you.
Guys,
Love you the most.
shalom,
Bye.
shalom, shalom.
Our appreciation to Jonathan.
Love you, Jonathan.
Yes,
Bye.
thank you, Jonathan. Blessings, blessings. Ellen,
That was
love
so
you.
wonderful.
Thank you.
All.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Oh
Thank you.
my
Thank you
word.
so much.
Wasn't that awesome?